And like I said, I've become absolutely fascinated by how can we compete in a game if we don't even know what game we're in. And then we drop out and somebody else replaces us. And nobody's sorry, or nobody calls you a loser. You haven't lost anything, but you're not a winner if you stay in the game either. This is wonderful. So the question is, how do you do this? What does it require? So as is my nature, I have to write things on boards. That's a joke. So the infinite game exists up here. The finite game exists down here. Right? The infinite game includes the why, what I call our purpose, cause, or belief. It's the vision of the company. It's where we're going. It's something that we will never practically reach in our lifetimes or ever, but we will die trying. That's the point, right? It's different from a big, hairy, audacious goal, which for all practical purposes you could reach. It may be difficult, but you could reach it. This is an ideal. It's a vision of the world. So my vision, I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired to go to work, feel safe when they're there, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. That is my vision, right? We will never practically get there, but we will die trying. The United States was founded with a document called the Declaration of Independence, in which the document stated, all men are created equal. Now, the United States has not achieved that, and will never achieve that. But the country is at its best when we're trying to achieve that. Civil rights, women's suffrage, gay rights, the universal education, universal healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. This is where our values exist. Our values are timeless. They do not change every year whenever we have a strategic offsite, and if they do, you have a problem. That happens in big companies. Every few years, a new CEO comes in and they have a values thing, and they change, and they change, and they change. No. Your values are your values, right? And they're based on your founders, and they exist from patterns of how you operate when you are operating at your natural best. When your company is operating at its natural best, when all cylinders are firing, when you're in the flow, whatever euphemism you want to use, there is a pattern that emerges. And that pattern are your values. There's a minimum of 3, there's no more than 5. If there's more than 5, there's usually redundancy. You can find overlap, that you can find lowest common denominators. And they are intractable. These things are inherently intangible and hard to measure, right? Which is why they often get brushed aside. It's not that they don't exist, they're just hard to measure. Then down here you have the finite. It's what I call the what. It's all the tangible stuff, right? Things like our interests exist down here. Because they are tangible, they are inherently easy to see and easy to measure, like products sold, money taken in, things like that, right? Number of clients we have. The way you build an infinite business is you want to run all decisions first through your values and your cause, and then through your interests. That's how it works. So what does a values-based decision look like? So when we send our military to battle, they will go onto the battlefield, and if they wound a bad guy, we will send our medics onto the battlefield to pull the wounded enemy off the battlefield. We will put them in our helicopters, fly them to our hospitals, put them in our hospital beds, and our doctors will use our medicine to nurse them back to health. That is not in our interest. But it's kind of who we are. That's why there are scandals when we find out that our military desecrated dead bodies of our enemies. It's because it violates our values. It makes us upset to know that our guys did that. That is not in keeping with, we say things like, who we are. That's what we're talking about, right? That's why we do something that is not in our interest, because it reflects our values. In the United States, we had a scandal with torture, right? Now, the reason we tortured offshore and the reason we tried to keep it a secret is because we knew it violated our values. If it was well within our values, we would be totally open about it and we'd just do it back home. We hide things that we know are uncomfortable and violate our values. In other words, you don't have to think very hard about whether this is in our values or not. We know. We know, right? Now, our interests lie down here. So we make decisions every single day, right? New client. Should we take their business? Sure, they're going to pay us a ton of money. Take it. Right? New ad campaign. What should we say in it? Hey, we can use clickbait and we can drive sales hard over here. And we make all these decisions based on what numbers are. And we're making all decisions that are in our interest. And those are the arguments we make. We make financial debates, and we don't consider this stuff. Right? Now, in a vacuum, any one of these decisions may be just fine. But the problem is when we pull back and we look at all of our decisions, nobody knows what we stand for because we are all over the place. That is perceived by employees and as customers, and by customers, as selfishness. In other words, as highly tuned social animals, which we are, we will perceive this behavior as not trustworthy, and we may do business with you. That's called transaction, but we'll never give you our loyalty, and we will never trust you. Employees are the same way. I will work for you as long as you keep paying me, but I will be open to other opportunities elsewhere, and I will not give you my best and brightest because I don't know that I'm safe here, because I see the way you make decisions. Now, if we make values-based decisions, means we run all of our decisions through here first, occasionally we might make less money than we could if we made that decision. Occasionally we make mistakes, but what starts to happen is all of our decisions start to look mostly consistent. And if you pull back, everyone can say, aha, I know what you stand for. I know what you believe. They use words like authentic, or they say you have high integrity, or you are of high moral fiber or character. All of these words that we use to describe people, we use to describe companies as well. I trust you. Knowing very little other than I know how you make decisions. So take us, for example, right? We work with some very dysfunctional companies, but at the core, the executives who bring us in are trying to do the right thing. We have been offered to go work with companies who, when we talk to them, we know they only want to use our stuff to drive short-term gains. And they offer us a lot of money to work with them. We turn them down because we have a vision. And our vision is a people-based vision. And we want to work with companies that will transform their cultures, that will produce cultures that people are inspired to come to work every day. And if I help this company, I may help them drive their numbers, but it won't help advance my vision for the short-term gain of only the money, which I can make somewhere else. And if I'm going to tell my people this is our vision and they see me make these decisions and I cannot justify them, then what starts to happen is they start to think that what I was saying was bullshit. And then they stop trusting everything I say, even if I'm saying the right thing. That's the point. Our friends are the same way. If our friends only made decisions based on their own interests, do you think you would trust your friends? Right? If they would never come to your house, you always have to go to their house because they're lazy. There's no sacrifice. There's no giving. Everything's in their interest. We wouldn't want to be friends with them. In other words, as these highly trained and highly tuned social animals, we're constantly evaluating the words, the actions, the behaviors of politicians, of executives, of our colleagues, of our friends, and of companies to determine whether we can trust them and work with them. We will do transactions with them, but this is where loyalty, love, and this is where the infinite game lies. It's the only way to build an infinitely built company. It has to be built on values, on the intangibles. I spent time with the United States Marine Corps, and they talk all the time. They actually say these words. They say, the reason the United States Marine Corps is what it is, the reason its culture is so strong, is because of the intangibles. They literally talk about the intangibles all the time, which are the emotional bonds, the love, the vision, the standards to which they hold each other, the intangibles. We don't like the intangibles in business. We love the tangibles, which is fine. Then you have to be satisfied that when you run out of the will or the resources to play, you move on, right? There is no winning the game of business.